Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are back and we're going to be covering my latest event, Clutch Chess the Champion Showdown. Now, before we get into the event, I would be remiss if I did not talk about recent events. A couple of days ago, I flew to San Francisco for the funeral of Grandmaster Daniel Naroditzky. Now, this was a very, very difficult day for everyone who's there. For myself personally, all I can say is that it felt so senseless, so tragic, and frankly just overwhelming that Dania is no longer with us. As I've said in some of my recent interviews, for me, it's very difficult because over the last year or two, Daniel was probably the only person that I felt that I could speak to freely and openly about a wide variety of topics relative to other top chess players. Now, this is no way some kind of shot or trying to start some beef, but Daniel was the person that I had the most trust in. So it's going to be really difficult moving forward because there are so many things in the chess world that I spoke to him about that I will no longer be able to have those conversations. So it was very difficult. Once again, I feel very, very sad for Daniel's friends, his family, everybody who was there. We can only hope that things will improve in the world of chess and some lessons will be learned. But ultimately, it just feels so senseless and so sad. And for me, I just really hope that moving forward, we can remember Daniel, everything that he did for the game. You know, as I said to a few people when I was in San Francisco, the memories, the videos of Daniel that are out there, they will last forever. They will far outdate or exist more than plenty of other things that have happened in the world of chess in recent times. So all I can say is that I think we should look back, remember what Daniel meant to chess, and I think also going forward that we try to learn some lessons from the recent events. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the event Clutch Chess the Champion Showdown. Now, this event starts today. It's going to be a 3-day event. It features a 5-time world champion, Magnus Carlsen. It features myself, the world number 2, Fabiano Caruana, the world number 3, as well as the reigning world chess champion from India, Gukesh Dommaraju. So the event is a 4-player event. We play 6 games every day. You play a 2-game mini match against each player. There are 18 games of chess, but there's one very important catch. Now, the catch to the event is that the format has more points as each day goes along. Very specifically, on the first day, if you win a game, you get 1 point. If you draw a game, you get half a point. And of course, if you lose, you get 0 points. On day 2, if you win a game, you get 2 points. If you draw a game, you get 1 point. Obviously, if you lose, you get 0. But on day 3, if you win a game, you get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and 0 for a loss, meaning that if you win games on day 2 or day 3 and have a terrible day 1, you are going to be in the running to win the event. Now, it's a very interesting format because it means that anybody potentially can win the event going into the final day, and I think from a viewer perspective, this is very exciting. All right, so to the games. So my first mini match was against Fabiano Caruana. In the first game with the black pieces, Fabi with the white pieces, he soundly outplayed me in a very nice positional masterpiece to get the win, and we're going to pick it up with the second game of the mini match where I have the white pieces. Now, the time control, I forget if I mentioned this, is 10 minutes plus 5-second increment per move. So the game starts with d4. We get knight f6, c4, g6, and now I play the move pawn to f3. Now, when Fabi played the move g6, I actually was expecting Fabiano to play something like the Grunfeld defense with d5 here, which is why I decided to play the move f3. Had I been paying attention to some of Fabi's recent rapid and blitz events, or actually just used some logic here, I would have realized that Fabi's intention was to play the King's Indian defense. Now, I don't know if Fabiano was doing this to pay homage to Grandmaster Daniel Naroditzky or not, but nonetheless, he decides to play the King's Indian. So here I play f3. We got bishop g7, e4, castles, knight c3, d6, bishop g5, and now we get the move pawn to c5. Now, this is what is known as the Samish variation of the King's Indian, where white builds this big white center here, and now we get the move e6. I play the move queen to d2. We get takes, we get a6, a4, and now Fabi plays the move rook e8. Now, Fabi did hesitate very slightly. He almost played the move knight b to d7, and this move actually is a serious inaccuracy, because after knight to h3, and let's say rook e8 and bishop e2 here, with the knight going to f2, this knight has a nice safe home on the square, and white can try to push the pawn to f4. Now, it's not to say this is losing for black or anything, but as you'll see in the game, the way I end up developing the knight is not to the optimal square. So Fabi goes rook e8, knight e2, knight d7. I play knight g3 here. Very similar to the f2 square, is that from the g3 square, the knight guards the pawn in the center. We get knight e5, bishop e2, c4, castles, bishop d7, play the move a5, and now we get the move b5. Now, one of the things that I like to say about chess when you're learning the game is that chess is a game of 1,000 rules. When you learn these 1,000 rules from the get-go, you learn what you can do and what you can't do, but eventually, as you become better and better at the game, you learn where you can break the rules. Now, I mention this because I don't think in my entire life I can recall a situation in the Ben-Oni, where we get a position like this, and you don't go for en passant, breaking the black chain in 3. If I don't play en passant, black has these 3 pawns that are connected, and you almost universally just play it automatically. But when Fabi was thinking a couple moves earlier, I actually noticed a very creative and inventive idea here, which was to play the move knight to a2 instead. Now, the reason I played knight to a2 is after we get h6, I played bishop e3. Perhaps I could have taken this pawn already, but I thought that after takes and queen to a5 here, I wasn't 100% sure whether I was actually doing well. So I drop the bishop back. We get h5, and now I play the move knight b4. And this illustrates the concept that I've been chasing from when I played knight a2 a couple of moves ago, where I get this nice bastion knight on b4, permanently targeting the pawn on a6. Black has no way to remove the knight. If black could put this pawn here on c5, just to set up a random position so you can see it. If black could somehow get a pawn on c5 here, this knight would have to move. But in this position, there's no way to remove this knight. You can't get a pawn to c5, so the knight is always spying the pawn on a6. It's also potentially going to c6 or d3 as well. So we get the move h4. Now, this illustrates why the knight is better on f2 versus being on g3, because the knight has to go home, and I have to try to reroute it to f2, and I lose a little bit of time. So we get knight h7. I play f4 here. Worth pointing out that black's idea is to play something like f5 here, trying to attack on the open file, as well as using the diagonal in the long run. So I go f4, knight g4, takes, knight f2, guarding the pawn, hitting the bishop, and now we get the move knight f6. Now, very, very quickly, I played the move bishop b6, and it's worth pointing out how psychological of a game chess is. Now, as soon as I played bishop b6, I actually thought I had missed a win on the spot in this position. I thought I could have played e5, takes, and the move knight c6, forking the rook and the queen, and winning material. Now, as you'll tell from the valuation bar, this is not actually the best line. In fact, I'm worse in this position. But once again, without having a computer to help you during the game, I actually thought I had missed something. Now, the computer says after takes, and rook d8, bishop c3, and bishop e6, black is better because you have the 2 b's, but additionally, you have a bishop and 2 pawns in return for a rook. So I played bishop b6, Fabi goes queen d7 very quickly, and the issue here is that I thought I just missed a forced win. So from a mental standpoint, suddenly you're like, WTF, what did I do? I just missed a way to win this game against Fabi and get back in the tournament. So I blitz out rook a e1, which is a terrible move. I should have put the other rook on e1, because after h3, g3, if black plays bishop f3 and bishop d4, there are no tricks, unlike in the game with trapping a rook on f1. So I blitz out rook e1. We get h3, I played g3, bishop f3, and now I play the move bishop d4 anyway. But the problem is after bishop g2, now my tower on f1 is trapped, the pawn guards the bishop, so I'm going to lose some material. The good thing here is that I can play queen c3, setting up the double A battery. We get knight to h5, takes, and now I play the move queen to f6. Here, Fabi plays knight h5, I go queen g5, and now we get the move king to g7. Now, Fabiano is playing a great game so far. This bishop stays here, always getting ready to take the rook, but never rushing the capture because there's no way for me to move this rook out of the way. So I decided to play the move f5. Now, this move is a bit of a desperation move here by me. I know I'm going to lose a rook here, but with these knights potentially jumping towards the center of the board, I still feel like I can create counterplay. So I go f5. Now, here Fabi plays move queen to e7, and this move is actually a very, very severe mistake. What Fabi should have done is he should have taken the rook first, and after takes and queen to e7 here, if I move my queen away after pawn takes pawn with the double stack on this open e file and then the queen going to f6 potentially, black is going to end up winning the game due to the material advantage of the rook for the pony. But when Fabi decides to play this move queen to e7 in this position, now after queen d2 and bishop takes rook, I do not have to take the bishop right away. Instead, I can play the move knight to c6, attacking the queen, and now the queen has to move back to c7. Fabi probably would have loved to have gone to this f6 square, but after queen to f6 and knight g4, it is the classic spaghetti-o moment. The queen is trapped here. There are no squares available. If you go here, I take the queen. It's a Botez gambit. takes, here, take, here, takes, go here, takes, if you go here, I take, if you go here, I take, and last but not least, if you move a bishop, I take the queen and win the game. So after knight c6, Fabi has to move the queen away, and now after rook takes bishop here, suddenly the e file remains closed. Black cannot take this pawn because I check the king and then capture the horse and win the game. So with the rook on this f file, the knight and the queen coming in here, this is actually very, very hard to play for black. Additionally, Fabiano is down 1 minute on the clock in this position, so as such, it makes it very difficult to play. So we get knight f6. Here I play the move queen to f4. This move is what I would call a lazy move. In a classical game of chess where I could think for 5 or 10 minutes, I probably would not play this move. But ultimately, the reason I play this is because if I were to play knight h3 and black plays knight takes e4, I have to calculate some lines. I'm not sure what's going on. And when I play queen to f4 here, Fabiano has to use time. There are no obvious moves. And with Fabi having to burn clock, this becomes a very difficult situation to defend the position. So here we get rook to e5, I take, and now I decide to take this pawn on h3. You'll notice that I have a double stack pressuring the pony on f6 while the rook still remains under attack on e5. So Fabi goes rook f8. I take the rook, and now I play this move queen to h4 after 4 seconds. Now this move is simply a bad move that I played here. I played this move very quickly because I actually thought that after queen to h4, I keep the pressure on the knight here, and my knight is getting in here to create the classic family fork and win the game. Sample line, b4, knight g5, c3, knight e6. This is what we call the family fork. You fork the king, you fork the queen, and you fork the rook with the knight. However, what I should have played here was queen to e3, keeping the idea of knight g5 and knight e6 alive here. But I actually was afraid of some knight g4 move, and after queen b6 takes. For some reason, I thought there was some way here that black could break through with the queen and the knight. In reality, black can't break through, and white is simply winning. But in a blitz game, without a lot of time to calculate, sometimes you see the boogeyman. So I go queen to h4. Now here, Fabi plays queen to c5 after nearly 20-second think, and this move simply loses the game. What Fabi should have played was the move knight to h7 right away, and after rook takes rook here, knight takes rook, black is actually very much in the game because black can push the p on the queen side here with this queen perfectly placed to cover the checking square while supporting this pawn going straight up the board. Instead, Fabi throws in the check. He goes knight h7. But now after I take, if Fabi were to take with the knight in this position here, I can play the move queen to d8. And after b4 here, I can simply go knight to g5. Let's say c3. After takes, I can go d6. And with this queen and the knight here, this black king is going to be checkmated in a couple of moves. In the other line, just to go back for 1 second so you guys see the difference, after takes here, black can still push the pawn through, but the queen covers these 2 critical squares. The white queen can't get in. So Fabi decides to take with the queen here. I play knight to f2, knight f6, and now I go queen g5, queen d6, and here I play the move queen to e3. That was very similar to what I could have had earlier in the game. My queen has come back to e3. Luckily, this is an endgame here where I have a protected passed pawn. So with the protected passed pawn here, I should be winning. So we get queen c7. Here I play queen to a3. This also is a little bit inaccurate. Queen to b6 would be winning instantly. But after I go queen to a3, I guard the pawn. Black still can't push these pawns through. And I spy this e7 square with the queen. So Fabi goes knight e8. I play knight g4, knight d6. And now I play queen e3 back, guarding the pawn, but spying this h6 square. Now in this position, Fabiano blunders the game away with b4. But even if he had played knight to f7 here, after queen to b6, with a threat of queen to f6 here, the knight pressuring the pawn in the center, white is completely winning. Fabi plays b4, this blunders queen to h6 here, checking the king. He goes king g8, and after knight to f6, Fabiano resigns the game because after king to f7 here, I have queen to h7 checking the king. King's got to take the horse, but now I capture the queen, and I have too much material. So I get a big win in the second game against Fabiano to tie up the mini match at 1, and let's move on to my next mini match against Gukesh Dommaraju, the reigning world chess champion. So we're going to pick it up in this first game against Gukesh. I have the white pieces. I open with d4. We got knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, and now I play the move e3. Now this is what is known as the Nimzo Indian defense. We got the move castles. I play bishop d2, d5, knight f3, and now we got the move c5. Play a3, takes, we got takes, and now the move rook e8. Now in this position, I play the move knight to f3, Gukesh plays knight c6, and it's worth pointing out here that that after this move, rook c1 and e5, the position is generally pretty drawish. Now, the reason I bring this up is that I'm playing a line that's incredibly unambitious. So when I'm playing something so unambitious, I should be more than content to make the draw because I'm not really trying to push the envelope and get a big advantage from the get-go. So I go rook c1, e5, takes. Here I play bishop b5, and now we get the move bishop g4. Now what's funny is when I played the move bishop b5, I almost immediately realized that Gukesh could play this move pawn to e4, attacking the horse, and then playing queen g5 here with a massive threat towards the pawn on g2. And computer actually says that white is in all kinds of trouble. So as soon as I played bishop b5, I actually saw e4 and I was very, very unhappy with myself. I hadn't played great in the first match against Fabiano, and now here I am making some mistakes very early against Gukesh. But Gukesh decides to play the move bishop g4 instead. I take, and now I play queen a4. We get e4, knight d2, Gukesh takes, I take, and now he plays the move rook b8. Now, after I go queen c2 in this position, I can breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief because I've stabilized the position. I'm getting ready to castle my king, and the pawns on e4 and the pawn on c6 are both under attack. So Gukesh plays queen d5. Now I play h3, we get bishop to c8, I decide to castle, and we get to move bishop a6. Now this is a very, very important moment to talk about because ordinarily I will tell you that in this situation, if I were playing against Magnus Carlsen, I can say with almost 100% certainty here that I would have played this move knight to c4, effectively forcing a draw in the position. But against Gukesh, I decided not to do that because I actually thought that I could outplay him in a blitz game, even though his bishop is going to be better than my knight, as we'll see. Now, the reason that knight c4 is effectively a draw is that white is threatening to play rook d1 and claim the lane, so black should take on c4, sack the rook temporarily on b2, and after rook takes e4 here, if black takes a queen, there's rook takes e8, checkmating the black king here, with the ice skater checkmate, and after rook e4, let's just say, I don't know, queen e4, queen b2, we have an even number of pawns on the board. Maybe white has a very tiny advantage, but the game should be a draw. Instead, I play rook to e1, letting Gukesh plant this wooden shield on d3. The pawn supports the bishop. Bishop has all kinds of diagonals active, and now I play the move queen c1. Gukesh goes rook to e6, and now I play this move knight to f1. Now, this move I think is a little bit imprecise. Probably I should have played rook to c5, followed by b4 here, with perhaps a tiny advantage after rook g6 and king h1 due to my knight being able to come into the game. But instead, I go knight f1. Here, Gukesh plays h6, and now I play b4, and now Gukesh plays the superb move rook to b5. Now, this move is an excellent move, because up until this move, I actually thought I was still perhaps a little bit better in the game, but this move takes away any of the ideas of rook c5 to remove this queen from the center of the board. So I go knight g3. Gukesh plays a5, and now I play the move pawn takes pawn. Now, this move is actually a big mistake here in this position. Probably I should have played a move like rook d1, after takes, knight takes e4, queen e4, and rook takes d3. The game should still be about even. But instead, I decided to take this pawn. And the reason I took this pawn is that I actually only saw the very obvious move, rook to b1, and I was going to sack my queen by taking the rook. And I thought that in this position, after rook to c1 here, I couldn't be worse. If anything, I thought I could only be better here because the pawns on c6 and e4 are super weak here. And as you can tell from the valuation bar, black doesn't have an advantage. If anything, it's white who could be better here. But after I take, Gukesh plays a phenomenal move pawn to c5, ignoring this pawn, ignoring rook b1, and simply trying to create an overpowered wooden shield here on d3 by pushing the pawn to c4. So I go queen d2. Gukesh plays c4, I play knight e2, rook a6, and now I play the move knight f4. And after queen to e5, now if anybody is going to win the game, it's going to be Gukesh, as this bishop is so well placed, and the rook on the b5 square is on an open file, the a5 pawn is weak, a3 is weak, so only black can try to win. So I go rook c1. We get rook takes a5, queen a2, rook a7. Here I am up a minute on the clock, by the way, so I still wasn't feeling too concerned about the situation, but Gukesh simply finds some amazing moves. He goes king h7, goes queen c5, I go here, we got some dilly-dallying, keep waiting, and now I decide to play the move queen g4. Now, it's worth pointing out here that probably I should have just waited with king h2 or some other move, but I thought that by getting this queen to the king side, I would suddenly have a chance to win the game. So Gukesh goes rook b2. I play queen g4, queen f6, queen g3, and now this move rook to b3 is played, and all I can say is RESPECT, respect. This is a phenomenal move from Gukesh to find. He has 15 seconds on the clock. With only a 5-second increment, it would be very easy to panic here and blunder, but rook b3 is just a great move in the position, and now white is actually losing the game. If I move the rook away like in the game, black will just take the pawn. If I play rook takes rook and take, guarding the rook after queen to c3, queen to b8, and bishop c2 here, suddenly I can't guard both the knight and the rook at the same time. So I go rook c1, Gukesh takes a pawn. Now black simply has an extra pawn that he can push up the board. I play h4, and after the move rook a5, queen g4, and queen takes f2, I resign this game against Gukesh. And with that, Gukesh, after a rough first match against Magnus, is now back in the hunt as well. So a lot of kudos goes to Gukesh for finding some amazing moves in this game. Very specifically, this rook b5, a5, and then c5, just very, very good stuff. And then, of course, rook b3, the perfect rook sack at the right moment as well. So, very tough start now. I lost my first game against Fabiano. I think I stabilized by winning the second one, and now I lose to Gukesh. So we're going to take a very brief look at my next game against Gukesh, not so much for the result, but just because I want to regale you guys with some stories of just how long I've been playing chess. So after my first match against Fabiano, I decided that now I want to pay my own respects to Daniel Naroditzky by playing the classic King's Indian defense as well. We get g3, bishop g7, bishop g2, and now I castle my king. Gukesh plays knight f3, d6 castles, knight c6, knight c3, and now I play a very ancient variation that I first started studying in 1998. Now, those of you guys who are watching this video, probably a good chunk of you were not born in 1998, but for those of you who are, it was a much different world of chess. I can tell you guys, as I close my eyes for 1 second and go through the story, this is the line that I studied with my stepfather, FIDE Master Sunil Weeramantra, at the World Youth Chess Festival in Oropesa del Mar in Spain. Now, we analyze this on a classic board with some chess pieces. The engines were not super strong yet. Mega database wasn't what it is today. So we were just analyzing this line literally amongst ourselves, or between the two of us, on a simple chessboard and trying to make our notes and save it into the program ChessBase. Now, one of the lines we looked at was h3, and after takes, knight d7, e3, e5, d5, knight e7. In 1998, we thought one of the things that we spoke about was, say white were to play something like bishop g2, f5, and b3 here. After the move e4 with the great squares of e5 and c5, and this great bash knight coming in, as well as a potential connect 5. So you get something like this and a classic connect 5 here. Black is doing very well. But as we realized at the time we analyzed, after e4 and f5, we simply thought at the time that this is just a position. You play the game, it's like a King's Indian, you move the knight, try to attack the center. Of course, I'm talking about something that I studied 27 years ago. Now, it's very important to note for a couple of reasons. First of all, Gukesh was unfamiliar with this move bishop to g4, which kind of shows how the times have changed. But the problem is, even if he was unfamiliar with this line, he still found the best continuations. He does play e4, I play f5, and now he plays the move h4. Now, this shows great understanding from Gukesh. He has the two Bs, and he's trying to stop black from getting any kind of wild kingside attack. So I go f4. And here Gukesh plays the move g4, and this move actually is a little bit of a mistake in this position. Apparently, black might even actually be better here, which I'm kind of shocked by, with the move knight to c8. Because after g5, there's h6. Come to think of it, I'm almost certain I've had this position in a Title Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. But as you can also tell, it's not like it's a decisive advantage. But after g4, I instead play the move g5, trying to lock this bishop behind these massive pawns. And now we get the move pawn to h5. After h5, I play this move c5, and the reason I play this move c5 here is I'm trying to simply clog the toilet and close the board completely. Now here Gukesh played the move a3. He could have decided to go for en passant by taking this pawn, but after knight to d4, and let's say king g2, and rook f7, with the bishop coming around, this great bastion knight here in the center of the board, I figured only black could be better. So Gukesh plays a3, and now the game eventually peters out into a draw. I basically set up all my pieces here on the queen side. We get the spot where I play a5, and really at this point, with only one break of b4 here, it's on white whether white wants to play b4. If white ever does go b4 after takes, Basically, in this position with bishop c5, let's say takes, I have these great knights that are going to wind around. I have a rook coming down on the open a file. So Gukesh ultimately decides simply to force a draw. We get a repetition here. We just start moving our pieces back and forth, and it ends in a draw. So, not a great start. I draw my mini match against Fabiano, and now I've lost my mini match against Gukesh. And for the final match of the day, of course, it is the El Clasico against the 5-time world champion, Magnus Carlsen. So, in the first game, I have the black piece against Magnus, and he opens with the move d4. Play knight f6, and now he plays move knight c3. Now, I don't know if Magnus was trying to pay homage to Daniel Naroditzky, because this was a system, the Jobava London here, that Daniel and Alexander Bornik, his close friend, play a lot. So I go d5, we got bishop f4, a6, e3, and now I play the move h6. Now, all the way back, I believe in May of this year, in the Champions Chess Tour, I actually played this exact same line against Magnus, but I misplayed it very early on and got simply steamrolled off the board. This time around, Magnus plays a3. In our encounter earlier in the year, he played the move knight to f3 instead. So we get a3. Play e6, knight f3, c5, Magnus trades and goes bishop d3. Knight c6, e4, castles, and now I play the move pawn to b5. Now, I wasn't exactly sure what the best way to play this position was, but having seen this pawn structure before in the past here, I don't really want to trade everything off on e4, because now you get these bishops that are on great diagonals spying everything, and I think white should be better. So I play the move b5. Now, Magnus actually spent 2 minutes here before playing this move pawn to e5. This move is a mistake, but it's a very natural reaction. Now, as I mentioned before, having played these systems against Daniel Naroditzky and Alexander Bornik quite a few times, I have seen this idea with e4, and one of the questions that was always in my mind is what if white plays the e5 trying to use these two diagonals? But the computer always said black is fine here, because after knight d7 and queen d2, I can simply play f6, breaking up the center here, and now black is a little bit better. Magnus decides to take. I think Magnus actually might have thought that I was bluffing a little bit and I hadn't prepared this adequately, but I knew this was fine for me. So we get takes, bishop g3, knight e5, takes, and now we get the move rook e1. I take, we get takes, and here I play the move bishop d7. Now, I could have played this move bishop to d4, creating the classic wooden shield here with the bishop on all the diagonals, but I thought bishop d7 was good enough. I have the two bishops, I can play for the open file here, and I shouldn't really be worse. Magnus goes bishop e5, and now I play queen to f5, and here we get the move d4. I drop back, rook e3, and now I play this committal move bishop g5. Now, Magnus here is trying to lift the rook and use this really nicely placed wooden shield on e5 to attack my king. So I go bishop g5, get f4. Main reason I did this, by the way, is say I play rook c8 and rook g3. Now if I go rook f7, there's queen takes h6, and suddenly out of nowhere, my king is going to get checkmated very soon. So when I go bishop g5, f4 is forced, I drop back, and now this diagonal is closed for the queen. So if Magnus were to play rook g3, here I can simply play rook f7, and there's no queen takes pawn. Additionally, with this pawn on f4, the bishop can never go backwards either, which is a very important point, whereas before, the bishop could always drop back to g3 or h2 down the road. All right, so we get g4. I drop back, I don't take the pawn because rook g3 would end the game. I go back, and now we get the move queen g2. Here I play the move a5, trying to open up a diagonal for my light square bishop, and we get the move knight to e2. I go b4, trying to activate this bishop. Worth pointing out, this bishop is very passive here. There are all these pawns in the way, so I'm simply desperately trying to get the bishop in and use the open files on the queen side if I can. So we get knight g3. I decide to play bishop f6 here after a long think, and I'm actually very proud of this decision because I wasn't playing great chess. I'm struggling in this event so far. I'm playing one of the people that I have the worst career scores against, and I'm also down on time here. So it'd be very easy to lose complete control, but I find this move bishop f6, and the reason I'm very proud that I found this move is that it's the move that really stops any attack on the king side, because if I get rid of this bishop, there's no threats. Say I play like this and knight h5. This pawn is a serious weakness. There's f5, knight h5. Everything is coming towards the king side here. And when I go bishop f6, without this dark square bishop, white simply won't have enough to attack. Now here Magnus plays the move g5, and this is a rather uncharacteristic blunder from Magnus, because when he goes g5, I take the pawn, and Magnus takes the bishop. He initially wanted to take, he thought there's a pin. If I take, you just take the queen and win the game, right? But the problem is after bishop takes pawn and rook takes queen, I can throw in this move bishop takes rook, tickling the king. And after king to h1 here, I can simply take the rook. And now I have two towers for a queen. And with the open file here, I'm going to win the game very soon. So Magnus takes a bishop, I take back, and now he goes rook to e5. And here I play the very important move, bishop b5, tickling the rook on f1. Now, the reason this move is so important is that if I were to take on f4 right away, after knight h5 and queen h6 and knight takes g7, the game becomes very, very dicey here. If I take the knight, there's rook g5 picking off the queen. If I were to play king to f7 here, I think queen g4 and rook f4, and I don't even know what's going on here, but it's very, very hard to assess how to play the position. But when I go bishop b5 here, I tickle this rook, and the rook can no longer stay on this f file to support the queen, the knight, and the rook here. If you go rook to f3, there's now rook to a1, checking the king, and after king to f2, and g takes f4, black is going to win the game after knight h5 and queen h4. The king simply is stuck. So Magnus has to play rook d1. Now I take on f4, we get knight h5, queen to h6, and Magnus plays the move queen f3. Now, if Magnus had tried to go for knight takes g7, like in the other line with this rook g5 idea, it doesn't quite work here because I can throw in f3, attacking the queen. If white moves the knight after takes, and king h7, the knight's under attack. If you move the knight, I have rook to f1, winning the game on the spot as I win the rook, and it's too much material. And if white were to play the move king takes pawn, I simply take the horse, and with an extra bishop in an endgame, this will be very basic to win as well. So Magnus goes queen to f3, trying to stop the p here. Had he played queen g4, I can simply go f3, king f2, and now rook a c8. And with the rook infiltrating and the classic kebab on the second rank, white has no way to survive. So we get the move queen to f3. I play bishop to e8 here, rerouting my bishop and spying the pony. We get king to h1. And now I play the move bishop g6, trying to put this bishop on e4 to skewer the king and the queen. Magnus goes queen g4, and in the process of playing this move, Magnus decides to simply resign the game out of disgust here. Had he played rook g1, which is the other move, after bishop e4 here, white would have to sack the rook, but after takes, I can win the knight in the game. If white goes queen g4, after rook to a7, I guard my 7th rank, and I have the 2p here to start pushing up the board, and I will win in a couple of moves. Had Magnus not resigned after playing queen g4 here, the way the game probably would have concluded is rook to f5, and after takes, here the bishop and the queen attack the knight, pawn attacks the queen, after takes, and queen h5 here, I have an extra bishop, and there's no hope for white to survive. So Magnus decides to resign the game after playing queen g4. In our second game of the mini match, I decided to force a draw in the classic Berlin defense. Main reason being that with the point system being the way it is, I didn't really see a huge purpose of trying very hard to win the second game. Now, maybe that will come back to bite me. It remains to be seen, but it just didn't seem super practical on day one, whereas on day 2 or day 3, it would be an entirely different situation. So ultimately, it's a very mixed bag. I end up in second place after the first day of competition. Gukesh in his third match would actually steamroll Fabiano Caruana by a score of 2-0. And so Gukesh is the leader after day 1 of this tournament with, I believe, 3.5 points. I'm in second place with 3. But nonetheless, very mixed bag. There are 2 more days of exciting chess ahead, so I'm really looking forward to it. But that's going to do it for a recap of day 1 of the Clutch Chess Champions Showdown being held here in St. Louis, Missouri. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with a recap tomorrow after day number 2 of this event. Hope you guys enjoyed it and have a great rest of your day. See you soon. Bye.